2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Phule, phule, dole, dole, bole ki bambe Dubai. Phule, phule, dole, dole, bole ki bambe.
You're asking why the school begins with silence in the bus. See, quite often it's very difficult to bring silence into schools because children are working the whole time. And very often in schools there's a little bit of silence after assembly, and that becomes very routine, it becomes very ritualistic. Even for the teachers and for the students, that kind of silence just becomes an automatic, mechanical thing to do. And we don't want silence to have that quality. I think being silent is, in a way, the starting point of learning to observe yourself. So it's not about silence, it's actually about listening, observing, being attentive. And we felt that if the day begins with that quality of silence and we try to talk about it in different ways, the students are getting in touch with something which is very important for their lives. Why do we do it from the bus? Because if they come chattering all the way to the very end point and then we say be silent, it's a little sudden. So we become quiet before. So by the time they come here, they're a little ready to be quiet. That's it. Today, like every time, the parents' meeting was quite good. And we normally have parent meetings here on Thursdays and Fridays. And I've seen that a group of parents come regularly for these meetings. We are very clear now, after many years of working with schools, that unless parents are also very involved in this inquiry, it just becomes a school. It just becomes like a slightly different school. So if we are really interested in seeing if something much deeper can be communicated to children, we feel that maybe if we involve the parents in it, and the children see that their parents are also very deeply interested in it, psychologically the child feels maybe I will also try and explore these issues. So every new parent who comes, we are saying, look, we are not just a school, we are also a place where together as adults we are learning about ourselves. And because we are learning about ourselves, we are also learning how to bring up children. Yeah, one second. Yes, maths. Yeah. Just do the maths also. Do the maths as well. So, you could. So, it's been going quite well. I think parents are quite serious and interested. And they're beginning to see that it has a lot of meaning for their lives. Today, for example, immediately after the meeting, one parent brought me up here and she was talking to me. And she was explaining how, because of such dialogues, her own way of looking at her children and dealing with them is changing so much. Right? So, I feel what is happening in this school regarding meeting with the parents and all that is something very unusual, and I think it's very, very important. What we are doing nowadays is we have what is called an open day, when people who have applied to the school, they come on one day and we talk with them a little bit. And we explain to them that it's not just a school, but it's also a place where adults are learning together. So we asked them to come for some 8 or 10 meetings where we have dialogues like this. And then at the end of it, we want to have an intensive dialogue workshop with them so that they really understand the seriousness of it. And only after that, see whether they should be part of the school or not. The children are not a problem. Only when they are much older, then you have to ask yourself, how will the student fit into the school?
What do you mean?
But if the students are quite young, it doesn't matter. They will come and become part.
And at 13 years old, you do a special meeting.
Yes, we have started having these special meetings at the age of 13 because we feel that the students are old enough now to understand a little bit more about the school. Till the age of 13, they are very young and you treat them like children. But when they are 13, we try to make it a special occasion, saying, let's meet together, read together about what this place is about. It's not that they should understand everything, but at least they get the feeling, oh, this education is something much more than just learning subjects or doing things that you like doing. It's also about learning about yourself. It's learning about what it means to be a free human being, and so on. I understand. You are asking what is the central concern of the school. You are asking on what is the school based. I'd like to say that we are really, really interested in seeing whether there can be a transformation of the human mind. And that's the main concern of the school, of this group of people. And obviously it is a concern that should be, and a responsibility that should be shared by the parents and the teachers. It can't be just the teachers having that responsibility without parents sharing the responsibility. So, which is why we involve the parents so much. So the main concern is to bring about, to see whether the human mind can transform itself through inquiry, through dialogue. And I also feel that we are using the teachings of J. Krishnamurti as a starting point for the dialogue. So it's not that the teachings are like an authority which we should learn by heart, but it's more like involving Krishnamurti in the dialogue, so that we are all having a conversation, and what Krishnamurti is saying also becomes part of the conversation, to examine, to explore, to question. I think this is the first school where really there's no academic pressure, because each student is going at the speed that is right for him, and they do examinations only when they're completely ready for it. So there is no feeling of fear or academic pressure for the student. And if they stay on in the school for a longer time, I think they will begin to understand that the world is very complex and they have to live in this world without getting absorbed by it. So our dialogues with the students are meant to help them understand what it is to live in the world without getting absorbed by it. So if that intelligence, if that capacity for examining, observing, if that is awakened in the student, I think then there is a possibility of living in the world without getting caught in it. Interestingly, bullying happens in the school at a young age. The older students don't bully each other at all. But young students, young children, they tend to bully each other a little bit. mostly by saying, I'm your friend, I'm not your friend, are you my best friend, I don't like you, that kind of bullying. We talk a lot with them. We talk with them together a lot about this kind of bullying. And if some bullying becomes a lot, we might be talking every day. And maybe 3 times a day we ask, has there been any issue of bullying? So that they become more and more aware of the different forms that bullying takes. And then it seems to go down a lot. I think it's important to remember that these children are coming into the school having been influenced by society so much in terms of all these things. So we need to talk and talk and talk and help them awaken their sensitivity to the whole thing. Yeah. But I don't think the older students bully each other. But then the older students have goals, ambitions. So we are talking about that also. For example, this boy came and asked about spiritual authority. Another boy wants to talk about what happens if there's a goal and if there's ambition, right? So a lot of the conversation occurs because of the dialogues we've had. And it's very nice that after the dialogue together, many students come up individually and say, I want to talk about this more, I want to talk about this more. Very often what happens in a school is the student is not ready for a particular topic. He has not thought about it. And the teacher introduces the topic. So many students, they get into the habit of just trying to absorb information. They're not thinking about it. But here, because there is that space for self-learning, when they come to discuss with you, they have thought about it. Maybe they have thought wrongly about it. But at least they have given some energy to think about it. So when you talk, immediately the brain is able to get a feel of it. Or if the student doesn't get a feel of it, there's the opportunity in talking to understand where the difficulty is. And so help the student understand it clearly. 1 second. Aditya, do me a favor. Go and find Nachiket and bring him up. Because he was supposed to be doing some work. And he's gone away without telling me. So please ask him to come up. So there may be some other kinds of issues in self-learning. For instance, a child might get easily distracted. A child may not have the ability to sit quietly and work. So that we have to deal in different ways. Yeah. Walked where? To school. So school is the predicate. Right? The rain fell on the children.
This is the
Rain.
rain, not this Nadim.
Here rain.
First Nadim.
First Nadim.
Nadim
Walk.
is the subject.
They can start quite young. And many of the young children who have come to the school from a very young age, it becomes very natural for them from a young age.
How can I make the subject into red? I don't have any colors.
Circle it and put S. And circle the other thing and put P on top. I think the most important thing about a school is that there should be a group of adults who are very deeply interested in the whole movement of life. If the adults are very deeply interested in the whole movement of life, in a very natural way, they can come together to create a school. We should not worry too much about money, and we should not worry too much about having buildings and so on. I think schools can come up in a very simple way. This school started in just a rented house. We did not have any money at all, but the parents, whatever money they gave us as fees, we used that to rent the house, to buy things. So, if a group of interested people come together, I think they can do extraordinary things. Not only teachers, but parents as well. There's a lot of energy that gets released when people are really seriously interested in the whole movement of life. All the other things, studying, academics, and all that, I don't think that's a major problem. I think as you're doing it, you will find natural ways of helping a student learn. When you have taken away goal, when you have taken away authority, can you wait for a little while? I'll just finish my final.
Finish our conversation.
Yeah. And you try to remember where we went. And that map will not help you, because that's not a map of Bangalore. That's a map of the whole of India.
That's what you can find Bangalore over here.
You can find Bangalore, but you will not find Gublala and all those places in that map. My sadness is not that the children are not prepared for the world. They are prepared quite well, and they are all doing, in terms of career, in terms of finding a job, they are quite good actually, and they are doing very well. And they are also psychologically quite stable, much more stable than students who have gone to normal schools. But my real sadness is that for most of them, the self-inquiry is not a serious, burning passion. They get absorbed in living a family life. They get absorbed in living in society. They're nice people, but they're just nice people. It's not something much more than that. For me, that's a failure. I feel that's a failure, because so much energy goes into bringing them up, and they merely just fit into society as nice people, and I think that's a waste of energy. Which is why in this school we are trying to involve the parents so much in this inquiry. It does not mean that we should start with hope and we want to have ambition that every child of ours becomes some kind of revolutionary. No. I think having hope and having ambition is terrible. But I'd like to see if some human beings at least can take up this question of inquiry very deeply and go to the very end of it. Then I would say creating a school like this is worth creating. Otherwise it's a waste of energy. So we are trying everything we can do. Yes? You want to?